Used to be a hustler. I used to be a runner. Came from the gutter. Now we be on that struggle. Used to be in a life full of crime. I gotta hustle and do whatever it takes to survive up in the jungle. Talking rock bottom from the gutter. I used to get in trouble, but now I'm beyond the struggle.
Hey everybody, my name is Mark. I am your host with Beyond the Struggle. I am here this evening with Amy. Amy, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great.
Hey, so I wanted to touch base with you and get your story. Pretty much what we'll do is we'll just go ahead and let you go at it, and we'll start from the beginning where it started for you. And then at the end, if I have questions along the way, I'll ask you a few questions. And then at the end, I definitely want to make sure that we touch base on where you're at and what you're doing for everybody right now in your life, okay?
Okay.
So take us back to the beginning where it all started for you.
I started very young. Very, very young. It started for me, I was 9 when I first started with a family member molesting me. I became into alcohol at that time. Started running away from home. I was pretty much raised on the streets. That lasted from about 9 to 13, 12, 13. Like I said, I was on the street. I was drinking with the 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, thinking that I was a grown-up.
Was that here in Colorado?
Yeah. I was born and raised here. I had an older brother that was an addict. He was already an addict and an alcoholic. He would, on a daily basis, literally beat the hell out of me every day. It was just a nonstop thing. So at the age of 13, I got into my first serious relationship. That lasted 3 years, and it was the same thing. That's the kind of love that I grew to accept in my life. That's what I thought I was worth. So it was the same thing. I had a relationship where I was being beaten and pretty much raped every day of my life. So I used drugs to cover that up. Alcohol, drugs.
What kind of drugs were you using?
I was using acid, pills at that time, your basic pills, the Vicodin, the Percodans. They were Percodans at the time. Yeah. So that lasted until I was 16. I got pregnant. Did not have that child. That in itself, that decision in itself leaves a very, very dark scar on your heart. Very emotional. After that, I got into a gang where I was doing drive-bys. I caught my first felonies when I was 14. I liked to fight a lot, drive-bys, everything. So that was it until I was about 16. 16, I met the father of my kids. We drank, partied. We were 16.
Now, this whole time, were your parents involved, or?
So my mom was, as much as she could be. My father, he wasn't through, I think maybe through both of our decisions. I was always led to believe bad things about my dad. I mean, I had not necessarily my mom, but I had grandparents that would fill my head full of a bunch of stuff about my dad. So he was not involved in my life. I had a stepdad that tried, but he was just that. He was a stepdad.
Did you have your parents use?
Not until later. My dad did when I was younger, from what I know. I mean, I'm very close to my dad now, and the stories that I've heard, yes, but I wasn't around his part.
So that wasn't the influence, obviously, from the beginning?
No. But I was introduced at a young age because I had an older brother that was a very young addict. So I met the father of my kids at 16. And then, out on the street when you're that young, you get introduced to everything that's out there. Literally everything that's out there. So then I met the father of my kids, and when we met, he was in a gang, I was in a gang, but we didn't hang around those people. We hung around kind of just a rowdier crowd that liked to drink and party and do acid and smoke weed. And so that's what we did. I mean, I didn't smoke weed. It's not was never my thing. I went straight for the hard stuff immediately.
Yeah.
I was a very young alcoholic though. Very young. I like to drink. And then we kind of we started our family. We got married and started our family. So those were my young days. I had my
How many kids did you have at that age?
I didn't
16.
I didn't have my first daughter until I was 20.
20. Okay.
Yeah. But so at 14, let's go back. At 14, This is going to tell you a little bit about my pill use, my pill addiction. At 14, I got diagnosed with Crohn's disease. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's a stomach disorder. It hurts like hell. You have to have many surgeries. So I got put on a lot of pain medicine at a very young age. So I learned what that high was about. And that was just being 14, that kind of high. It was amazing. So then I kind of, I didn't have to stay permanently on those, but it did set a very good base for future addictions, for sure. So I had my first daughter at age 20. Life after 18, life kind of went on a straight line for a little bit because I was in the family. I was doing the family thing. I had my daughter. And then after I had her, immediately went into cocaine.
All right. Started
a very bad cocaine habit. Me and my husband did. Yeah, and then we got pregnant with my son, and that all stopped. It all stopped. So things went okay. Things were pretty much on the straight and narrow till I was about, 97, till I was about 23, 24. Decided I was going to pick up out of Colorado, out of my roots, and go to his roots, my husband's roots.
To get away from everything?
Yeah. And, he wanted to be a part of his family. And I was like, I really ain't got nothing here, so let's go. We got back there, and we were there for a year, and I got into a really bad horse accident and broke my back. So that brought all the pills back into my life. So yeah, that started a whole new venture on better pills, better highs. Then I got pregnant with my youngest daughter. Being pregnant with her was kind of different. Because I had broken my back already, broken my pelvis, all that. So my kidneys shut down immediately. Like I was early in pregnancy with her and my kidneys started shutting down. So they had to put me on Percocet when I was pregnant with her. The Percocet, my body developed an immune to them. So they had to put me on something stronger, long-lasting.
Now, up to this point, let me catch up. Up to this point, at any point did you ever think holy shit, I got a problem? You know what I mean?
No.
Did it ever set in like, damn it, or we just took the course of life and just did it was?
Yeah, I just thought to myself, I was still young. I was still living that life, the young life. I can do what I want to do, and I'm going to be able to be okay. But then they put me on methadone for my youngest daughter because it's long-lasting, stronger pain medicine, long-lasting. And she was born. She had to be born addicted to methadone. And it didn't even really set in then. She was born at 27 weeks. And so I had to watch all that, and it still didn't even set in then. I knew that my use was because of the pain, not physical pain, but like the trauma that I had.
Yeah.
I knew that I was drinking and everything to cover up, so I didn't have to be sad anymore. So I could feel worthy, so I could feel like I was involved or accepted. I knew all that stuff. I just didn't know that it was going to lead to an addiction. So brought my daughter home from the hospital, and I don't know, something flipped. Something I couldn't even explain to you what it was, but I started living life way the wrong way. I made some friends, and they started introducing me to Xanax. I have never tried any of those kind of meds before. So they introduced me to Xanax, and methamphetamines at the time was a great mix. And so it was a loss. It was a loss right then and there. I started dancing. I started just living life wrong. I was cheating on my husband,
Still raising a child.
still raising my kids. But then me and him decided to, I'm gonna pause right there really quick. I'm gonna go back. All of my growing up years, I delved in different religions. And when I say different religions, I'm going to say in paganism, any kind of witchcraft stuff that I could get into, I did. Very dark stuff. So, and I say that because that's going to come into play here in just a minute. So my husband decided he was going to leave, and we started divorce proceedings, and the judge ordered me my kids. He had them 3 nights a week. I had them 4 nights a week. When he had them, I was still dancing, so he had to work. So when he had them, he would bring them to me. So I would get home from the club at 3 o'clock in the morning, driving drunk. You know, you have to be drunk to do that kind of lifestyle. So I was getting drunk every night at work, driving home drunk, and taking care of my kids as soon as he would drop them off. And again, that it still didn't even sink in then. That I knew I was living wrong.
Yeah.
But it didn't even sink in then that I was headed down a long. Eventually, he never brought my kids back to me. And as being a good mom in my head, being a good mom, I stepped away. I was like, I can't give my kids nothing right now. I can't. My husband wasn't addicted. He still had some issues, but he was working. He had a good life set for himself at the time. So I just stepped away. It's like, I have multiple men coming in around my kids. I have drugs around my kids. I have alcohol around my kids. This is what I'm doing with my life. And I didn't want that for my kids. Nothing good was going to come out of that. And so I just stepped away, and I came back to Colorado. And I was back in Colorado. I came back in 2004. And I wasn't here maybe a month, and started racking up felonies into methamphetamines, cocaine, drinking, robbing people, anything that I could possibly do. I was doing it. I was literally doing the most. And then, so I was bouncing back and forth because still I wasn't ready to be away from my kids. I didn't know that I was having a problem. So I would still go back to Ohio. I think maybe what drew me back to Ohio so much is because I would catch charges here, get warrants, and I would run back to Ohio.
Take off, yeah.
While in Ohio, I would try to see my kids, and my husband was like, absolutely not. You ain't having no part of these children's lives. No,
Right. Was he clean?
He was, as far as I know.
Right.
I don't know. But so he would never let me talk to my kids. My family tried to search for my kids. They couldn't find them. He totally cut me and my family off for my children. So I would bounce back and forth. Like, I'd be there for 6 months, come back here for 6 months, rack up more felonies. I was not my worst me yet. In 2008, I'm going to give you years because ages I'm not good with. I'd have to think for a minute.
Yeah, that's fine. Years are fine.
So in 2008, I came back to Colorado. Maybe 2007, 2008, I came back to Colorado and just dove straight in. Alcohol, methamphetamines, pills, still robbing people, still running from the law, still doing everything. I mean, I had no reason to be carrying guns.
Yeah.
But I was. I literally had no reason. I mean, nobody disliked me enough to where I had a legit reason to be carrying guns at that time. So I started dating this guy. He was a Satanist. So I got right back into all the dark shit, the magic, the everything. I didn't follow him into Satanism, but when you're into the dark witchcraft stuff, You may as well be. So then I started selling. I started running drugs and hanging with bigger people than what I should have been, which took my life down a long dark road. And I don't blame them. It was all me. But they introduced me to a whole different lifestyle. And for a girl in the game, women don't have a place in the game, so you got to work extra hard. You got to put in extra work. In and out of jail, in and out of jail, in and out of jail. And then in 2009, my mom died. I lost my mom. And that was it. That was literally a wrap for me.
When you lost your mom?
Yeah. I went straight off the deep end. I mean, I was already off the end, but I hadn't really jumped off that cliff yet. And so I went straight off that cliff.
So the whole time you're doing your thing, things started getting pretty crazy for you. Never no break, no jail, no.
Oh yeah, no, I was in and out of jail since I was 14.
Okay.
In and out, in and out, in and out.
Well, I knew you were getting in trouble, but I'm talking about, like, you know, sometimes we don't get that break, like go to a sit down, you know what I mean? We're like see you on Monday and we split, you know what I mean? I did that quite a bit. You know?
No, so they would never hold me long enough so I would go in for like 3 or 4 days, but I always had people to bond me out.
Bond you out, yep. See, that's what I'm talking about. Yep.
I always had people that would be like right there, like, okay, we're getting you out. And those are the people that were like, no, we need you out here. You can't be in here. We need you out there. And so they were not the right kind of people to be bonding me out. So I lost my mom. And so this whole time in my life, I've pretty much just been on my own, living my life on my terms, doing my thing on my own. I have family. Yes, I have great brothers. None of them that were involved in my life at the time. I did have my older brother, but he was just involved with the scene as I was. So he wasn't no help into, hey, little sis, you got to get off this shit. Or you got a problem, you need to stop, because we were doing it together. Even with him, we got in a fight once, because sibling rivalry coming down is not a very pleasant thing. So he ended up shattering this whole side of my face, because we got into it. And so I think that kind of drove a little bit of a wedge. And then we lost my mom, and that drove a little bit of a bigger wedge. I don't know, that was just pretty much my thing for a lot of years. Still not the worst me yet. So in 2000, I'm in and out of jail, the halfway house. 2010, I went into the halfway house for my last time. Well, almost my last time. Got in trouble at the halfway house for inciting. Know how I was inciting a riot, but they thought I was, so they sent me to prison for my first time. So I caught my number at 10. I was there for a year. I was literally there long enough to catch a number and get back out. So I got out on parole the first time and had to have a hysterectomy done. When I had that hysterectomy done, the doctor sent me out of the hospital with 180 Dilaudid and 180 Percocet. My parole officer put me in a motel room because I had nowhere to parole to, so he paroled me to a motel room. And let me tell you what, that was, those were gone in like 3 days.
Jeez.
Yeah, fentanyl became a thing. It was in a patch. It was still in the patch. It wasn't a pill yet. I would cut 3 of those open a day and just drink them. I put them in a bottle of water and drink them. So I was literally, at that point, I was literally just killing myself.
Yeah.
So then I went harder into the meth, which I didn't even understand why, because I'm a downer person.
Yeah, I can hear this.
I don't.
Yeah. Sometimes, a lot of times people do that meth to balance it out, so.
Maybe. I don't remember. 2012, okay. 2013. I learned what heroin was. That was my...
Was it?
That was
your demon.
That was my demon. I hadn't met it yet. I thought I had.
Yeah.
But Yeah, I had not met that lady yet. So I started doing heroin. That was a whole new life.
Okay.
That was a whole new hell. I stopped doing everything else at that time. I stopped doing everything else besides heroin. Ended up going back to the halfway house, and then got out of the halfway house, and the guy I was with at the time ended up going to prison. And I can remember hearing him telling me to just maintain until he got home. Just maintain. I was like, I'm trying. The whole time I was running amok. Homeless. I was living out of a car, and I didn't have to be homeless. I had a home. But that's the life I chose. That's what I had in my mind that I was worth. I didn't ever have anybody telling me any different. So it came down to a very bad decision. I had this house that had a basement, and just out of sheer being high at the time, I had somebody come into my house that was forced to stay in my house. And even then, I wasn't like, I knew I was an addict at that time, but I still thought in my head that I could stop at any time.
Under control.
Yeah, I had it. I was running all this dope. At this point, I was running girls, still thinking that I had my life under control. I ended up catching a pretty serious charge. Before I caught that charge, though, there was a rape in there. I was carrying every weapon you could possibly carry, because I was doing some pretty big stuff. And I'm not glorifying it. That's a pretty disgusting way to live your life. But then I caught a pretty big charge, which sent me back to prison. My original sentence was 363 years, because they were going to try to hit me with a attempted first degree murder. Even then, I was like, somebody's going to bond me out, and I'm going to be right back at it. And that was my frame of mind. And so I did end up getting out. I was in jail a little longer. But when I got back out, I did try to get help. I did try to do the whole Suboxone thing. But then I realized that you can, in fact, do Suboxone. I guess probably not everybody.
Right.
But you can do Suboxone and heroin and pills and all that together. You can, if your will is strong enough, I guess, or if your body is whatever, that's beside the point. So I ended up going back to jail, and I sat there. I pulled my own bond at this point. I had a pretty large bond, and I knew nobody was coming with that big of a bond. So I was like, just pull them. Just pull them all. Pull all the bonds off the table. I was like, I've got to do this. And I knew what I was looking at, but the person actually lived. So they took that charge off the table and hit me with something else. They actually aggravated it. And so they gave me the max and aggravated all of my sentences.
How much you ended up with?
I ended up doing 5 out of 12, which wasn't bad. It's not a whole lot of.
That's what I did, 5 on a 13.
Yeah, it's not like, oh my God, I had to go sit down for 20 years. But
Still sucked.
It does. Doing prison by yourself is definitely puts a whole new aspect on prison. So I went to prison. I got there in September. By November, I was bringing methamphetamines into the facility. And I had all of Denver women's high until I didn't. And then somebody went and told on me, of course. So I ended up really doing hard time then, because I was in the hole for a year, and that sucked. They took my visits, they took my mail, they took my everything, my phone calls, my everything. So at that point, I just gave it to God, and let God sit me down for a while. And I knew then that this is something that was going to kill me. I had no right in my life to try to take somebody else's life. That's not up to me. God was like, I feel that God was like, you need to sit down. You need to sit it down.
Time to surrender.
Yep. And that surrender is a very good word. I don't think that I wanted to surrender to anything besides something that could numb
We never do. That's the thing with addiction. We never, surrendering is never an option. That's not even on the plate. You know what I mean? And when it's go time, it's go time. And, 9 out of 10 times we do it till we die, or we do it till we can't no more. You know what I mean? Or we get sat down, like you said, you're either in prison or dead,
Yeah.
A friend mentioned tonight in my men's group, and he said something that stuck with me is when you're talking, it was like, the crazy part is 10 out of 10 people die. You know what I mean? And so when we were addicts, it was nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I was very fortunate. I do now looking at it now, but at the time I didn't know what was keeping me here. I didn't know, because I was doing a lot of that would have taken people out, and I never once did I OD, and I should have.
Yeah.
I've seen people do a lot less and lose their life. So I don't have a very gory story.
No, it's all right. No.
But, I promised myself that when I got out of prison, that I would reconnect with my kids, and I did. I
was about to ask that.
We are working on our relationship now. I came back to Colorado 2 years ago.
Where'd you come from?
Ohio.
Okay.
Yeah. So I paroled out to the halfway house for the last time. Yeah. And
did you parole out in Ohio?
No, in Fort Collins.
Okay.
Yep. But then I was only there for 5 months.
Okay.
And then I interstate compacted to Ohio, where I got to meet my wonderful kids. Their dad did a great job with them.
Good for you. That's awesome.
Yeah, he did a wonderful job. My youngest one that was addicted to methadone, she's going on her 3rd baby. Very healthy. Has some health issues, but she's healthy. All of them are very smart. So, I mean, their dad did a great job, something I wasn't in a position to do.
Yeah.
And
but you recognize that. There's a lot of times where parents don't recognize that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They just, there's stories. I hear tons of stories when we're doing this that, it's crazy because like I shared just the other day with somebody who was doing a story. I didn't have kids when I was, which to me, I don't know the difference. I wouldn't know the difference, but I know that where I was at in my life, I'd probably be one of the same things. I didn't give a shit. I didn't care.
Yeah. I knew that when I walked away from my kids, I knew that there was no way I was going to give my kids up to a court. Never in no life. So I had to make that decision for what was right for my kids to just walk away. And I'm in a spot where I'm working that I work with mothers and children, addicted moms and babies and children. And I share my story to them all the time. The CPS, maybe CPS is involved, but you got to do what's right for your child at the time. If you cannot give your child the life they deserve, let somebody else do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Because somebody out there is willing to love that child and give that child everything that they deserve in life. Because they didn't ask to go through none of that.
No. I always say that to people, or when I hear people talk about other people's situations with kids and stuff. I'm a firm believer that, these children didn't ask to be born into this stuff. You know what I mean? And it's stuff's a fine line. You know how it goes. You know what I mean?
Yep. So what I'm doing now is I promised myself that I would come back and I would pull as many people as I could out of the trenches.
That's awesome. I love that.
Let my light, because I come from a dark place, that I want to just, people always ask me, what do you want out of life? And I tell them redemption. Well, what does redemption look like to you? Redemption to me looks like if I can help that one person, even if it's just one person, and pull them up out of the trenches and give them a glimpse of what their life is gonna look like, then that's enough for me.
That's what I was. As many as you can. Bring them all.
Yep. I'm up here now, and so I want to reach my hand back down and just pull them out one by one. handfuls by handfuls if I can.
Yep. So there's the huge saying that really sticks for, addicts is, we can't keep what we have unless we're giving it away.
Yes.
That's always stuck in my head since I started my recovery 20 years ago. You know what I mean? Like I've always had a passion for this. I've always wanted to do it. I've always talked myself out of it. I've been doing live videos since, forever. Back when COVID was around, I really got into it and I enjoy it. I love talking to people, answering questions, stuff like that. And especially with addiction. I love it. I love that to see someone like yourself, to sit back and share these stories, because somewhere out there, there's somebody that has a similar story. You know what I mean? And they're not going to make that breakthrough that you broke through. And believe it or not, if you don't know, that's a huge breakthrough to be able to come from the trauma and the stuff that you had to endure and not feel that you're good enough to proceed in life without having to give up. You know what I mean? And some little girl out there is sitting back as we're speaking now, listening to your testimony, saying, you know what, this woman went and did it. You know what I'm saying? She didn't give up, and she not only did she do it, she turned back to reach for other people to bring with her, and I think that's a huge part of your story as we tell these stories. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I believe in different addictions, I guess. I believe like some people get addicted to the drug itself. Some people get addicted to
The lifestyle.
the lifestyle. Some people get addicted to because it covers up their trauma. I was one of those people that it buried my trauma. So as long as I could keep burying that trauma, I'm going to keep using and using and using because I never wanted to feel it. And then when God sat me down, I had to feel it. I had to feel all that. And there's no way around it. I mean, unless it's eventually going to come to the surface.
Yeah. And it's better that you bring it to the surface. It really is, and I commend you for that. I really do, honestly. I mean, I really do. I've talked to several people about this stuff. This podcast that I put together and this platform that I'm trying to build is for everybody. You know what I mean? This isn't just for the person that you and I, when we do this, we're trying to save with this, but it's for you as well and for me. You know what I mean? Because this is what keeps us clean, is talking about this stuff. So not only we get the win-win, we get to hopefully help save somebody with this story. And then also you get to get it off your chest. And when we hang up from here, you're going to feel a sense of relief. Like, you know what I mean? I did that. You know what I mean? I own that. That was awesome, So I'm very proud of you, Amy, for coming and do this. And I really feel honored that you did this. So tell me a little bit, now that we went through this crazy life that you had. It wasn't gory, but it was definitely, I'm sure there was a lot of fine details in there that we won't get into, but
yes.
Let's talk a little bit about where you're at right now in your recovery, and when things changed for you. Let's give them a brief what's going on since you got out. Let's talk about the changes. I heard you say God. I heard you talk nasty stuff in the beginning, and I heard you talk about God. Let's talk about what happened once you got out. Let's hear about that.
Okay. So when I got out, I didn't sit around in prison. I had no free time at all. I was in school. I was doing classes to better myself. Anger management was a big thing for me while I was in prison. So I did all that. I got like 30 certificates while I was in prison. Then when I got out, I don't know, something in my heart changed. I was done. I was done. And I went and, my kids forgave me. I don't know if they fully understand what happened. I've tried to explain it in my truth. I can't explain it in their dad's truth because I will never badmouth their dad.
No.
So he's going to have to do that. But they know my truth and I stand on that. But for the most part, they have forgiven me. That's a big blessing in itself.
Absolutely.
So then, I don't know. I just, like I said, I always promised myself that when I got clean, I was going to start breaking generational curses because,
man, look at those words.
Ultimately, that's where it's at.
Man, yep. So you're doing recovery, some sort of recovery right now, right? What are you?
So My recovery is working where I work.
Okay.
And
you're you're a recovery coach, is that right?
I am a
Is that what
recovery
you're talking
coach. Yes.
about? Okay.
I also help run a sobriety house. So I do peer stuff every day. So that's my recovery to me. I'm getting my story out there. I'm
Yep.
giving the support of myself to somebody else, giving the resources that I know to somebody else so they don't feel stuck.
Yeah.
So they have places that they know that they can turn. And sometimes that's all it takes for an addict.
Yeah.
Is for somebody to tell them, listen, you can go here. It's freezing cold outside, but here's a resource. You can go and talk to these people, and these people can help you with whatever it is that this person's needing help with. That's pretty much all I do for my recovery, other than prayer and self-sustaining
Nice.
stuff.
Yeah.
But
And
earlier in my addiction, I did do I never was a 12-step person. I would get to like step 4 and have to do inventory, and I'd be like, yeah, no, but I work a lot.
right.
So that helps me with my recovery.
How long have you been clean? How long have you been clean now? How much clean time do you have now?
I've been clean almost 11 years.
That's right.
11
good
years.
Stuff.
This year
awesome.
will be 11 years, like in 3 months.
That's awesome. Good stuff, Amy. So what I want to do is, if you don't mind, when we do hang up with this interview, if you don't mind, I want to talk to you a little bit off the thing and see about talking to you about some of those resources.
Okay.
Because I definitely want to hook up and get some of those resources going. And, that's what we're going to try to do here with this stuff. But that's kind of what we're doing with this platform, you know. And you got quite a bit of time under your belt, but I do want to share with you a couple things, you know what I'm saying, that I share with everybody at the end of the podcast too. You know, I'll always just remember, if I could give you any advice, and you're in a great position to be giving other people advice. And I learned a lot from this interview, but you know, always remember this. Staying busy is great, you know, but also keeping that foundation, keeping that square, you know what I mean? Staying on top of that square. And, cause I was just talking, I think we were talking before we went on here about that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I know at any given minute I could give it back. I don't want to give it back. I know you don't want to give it back. And I know we don't ever want to go back to that lifestyle that we were living before. But you know, I remind myself that, and I always keep people close to me that I can speak to. If something just, you know, I get these funky thoughts or anything, you know, and I haven't had none. I'm not going to sit here and lie and make it sound like, oh, these intrusive thoughts flow through your brain and stuff when you get to 10, 11 years and stuff. You know, it does get a little bit easier, as I've said before, you know, but the minute we relax, take off the seatbelt, you know, as I would say, that's when it gets dangerous, you know.
Yes. When he comes, that demon comes creeping right back. And whether you act on it or not that's going to be a personal decision, but he will come creeping back as soon as you get comfortable in that. So yes, staying on that square is definitely, I agree with you 100.
Absolutely. All right, Amy, well, we're going to bring this to an end. I appreciate your interview so much. It was awesome. If you don't mind, I'm going to put a note in your stuff to follow up back with you. I'd like to follow up with you maybe later at the end of the year or something like that, and kind of see where you're at and see where, because you're trying to get some licenses, I understood, and stuff like that. So
yeah,
I'd like to follow up with you and see where you're at with that, and see, you know, maybe God opens some doors for you, and you know, you could come back to me and be like, hey, Mark, I really want to share this. And, you know, that's what I'm going to be here for. So, you know, you want to open up some doors for some women, you don't know. God might bless you with something. I mean, this is going to be huge. I'm telling you, you're part of a big, you're part of a big thing here. You know, you keep that sunshine going, and you're going, I promise you, you're going to spread in the word that saving lives is going to be huge. God's going to bless you. I promise you. You're going to do big things. Okay. You never know. You never know. You might end up with your own center. You don't know. My next interview might be like, hey, Mark, I need to have this interview. I got it going on. You know what I mean? So, all right. So I appreciate you, Amy. And then I'm going to bring this to a close, and I'll talk to you here in a second.
Okay. Thank you.